Let's see the quote, the full quote about that, okay? Where Griff said that LeBron seemed satisfied after winning the title for the Cavs. He said there wasn't a lot else for him. I don't think he's the same animal anymore about winning. So Ramona, is that fair criticism from Griff?
You know, Dave, we were both around last year. You quite a bit more than me, traveling with them on the road. I thought the optics for LeBron were a little off last year. I've never seen him be anything other than devoted to winning, and sometimes devoted to winning is making sure that you're ready to go during the playoffs, pacing yourself throughout the year, building throughout the year. Last year, I don't know what it was, and maybe it was just that team never came together, and so he never got to deliver on what he does, right? Like in the playoffs is when he gets to be LeBron. That's when you put up with all the stuff, that the extra attention, the pressure, the media circus that's around LeBron at all times. You put up with that because he delivers in the playoffs. Well, it's worth it when you're in Cleveland and he goes to 4 straight finals. In Los Angeles, it didn't happen. And I don't know if maybe he just looked at his team and says, you know what, these guys don't have it. Or they just had too many injuries. They never came together. But he was off last year. I mean, I think he would agree. And I think this year is the year where you go, okay, let's see. Because he didn't deliver on that last year. And I think he would say the same thing. Like, he didn't have the kind of year LeBron has.
To Ramona's point, Dave, there was, and you could probably remember this better than the three of us, is there was a point last season where he was asked about the pressure about winning a championship, and he said something like about his legacy, and he's like, my legacy's good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there is some of that, right? Like, that's the only little thing I would push back on, to Ramona's point, is that he actually said something to that effect about his legacy being what it is already, and that anything, I'm paraphrasing, and not an exact quote, but basically the rest is gravy.
He echoed, it was a similar sentiment that he shared with Joe Varden, and he echoed it. I believe we were in Boston. It was right after the trade deadline. And he kind of said, like who I am, like everyone's going to know who I am.
Right.
At one point, he expressed to me that, I think the one thing they're going to bring up is that I missed the playoffs for my first year in LA. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to LeBron James. Now, Ramona has a valid point to make that it didn't live up to the standard that he set for himself and the teams that he plays on. I think there were circumstances, some beyond his control with the groin, some in his control with the way he, conducted himself in terms of even a small thing like bringing wine into an arena and showing, just the optics of it were not good. Yeah. But where you go from here, it's just strange to me, David Griffin, understanding how this sport works and understanding how LeBron has been able to create a new paradigm for an aging player. To suggest that winning isn't something that really matters so much to him.
Oh, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive, right? Like, he can say the thing about, like, my career's pretty much cemented, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean that he doesn't want to win, right? But I think the natural inclination is to believe, well, wait a second, if he's already satisfied with where his career is, then maybe he doesn't have that same desire. I'm not saying it's a leap that I'm willing to take, but I could see where people are willing to take that leap, whether it's David Griffin, or I remember when he made those comments that you just mentioned. I was on the radio here on ESPN LA, and everybody was freaking out because he made those particular comments. And I'm like trying to chill people out, like, that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to keep winning championships. That just means he's trying to show people, like, hey, remember who I am, right? I'm LeBron James. Similar to what Kevin Durant did in the first round with the Pat Beverly thing. He's like, I'm Kevin Durant, okay? Yeah. So I think that you just have to kind of have it all in the proper context.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only difference is that Kevin Durant had won 2 titles at that point, right? He had won with the Warriors. LeBron has won titles, but not in Los Angeles. And I think that is his challenge going forward, which is you're playing for the Lakers now. There's a lot of banners up in those stands. There's a lot of trophies in Jeannie Buss's office. And this is LeBron's franchise now, but he has to deliver on it. And which is, look, they have Anthony Davis now. They went out and got the players he wanted. They went out and they have a team that is projected to contend for a championship now. So this is the year. I don't think we get to say he doesn't care about winning anymore until we see how he does this year with a team that can win.
Yeah. One thing I will say, David Griffin, in conversations I've had with him over the years, looking back at his final tenure in Cleveland, he accepts some responsibility there too. Yeah. He feels like you could have given them a better team in 2017 after obviously Kevin Durant changed the entire league by going to Golden State, but also just as a motivator, he could have been there pushing the urgency a little bit more, because the nature of the 3-1 comeback in 2016 was so satisfying for a lot of the players involved. David Griffin in the story says he wasn't satisfied at all by it, but for a lot of the players involved, that okay, the human instinct was to kind of rest on your laurels just a little bit. And David Griffin thinks that, looking back, he could have tried to enhance that environment during the regular season to better prepare them for the postseason.
Yeah, go ahead, Ramona.
What I would say, though, is like, being close to the Cavs, and you obviously lived there and lived and breathed it, but I would pop in and parachute in during certain times and talk to Griff and LeBron and see the apparatus that was going on. I mean, he was a man caught in the middle of not just one or two different huge forces, but like an entire organization that he was holding together. And I say holding together. That's a weird word because I don't know if they were ever together. I think they were just keeping this like balance. Like, how there's tectonic plates when you have an earthquake, like they stay and the pressure builds and builds and builds. And sometimes you have a slip. Well, Griff was the fault line, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all he could do. And I remember just trying to like communicate with Dan and like the hurdles you'd have to go through to get to Dan or to even have a conversation. And that was Griff's decision to manage that and job to manage all that. I mean, he has such a different situation now with Gail Benson, who just said, here is the key to my franchise. You go do it. He wins the lottery, pulls off a trade for Anthony Davis. Like, he's feeling himself a little bit now, right?
So could these quotes be, in some sense, serving that new relationship with Gail Benson?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For highlights and analysis, check out the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, check out ESPN+.